Yo, what's going on everybody? It's your OBC, your original Boruto Chief Naruto Explained here, bringing you guys the spoilers for the upcoming Boruto 2 Blue Vortex manga chapter. And we got most of the spoilers this month. The last chunk of the chapter has not been released yet, but there's a lot to unpack here, including the fact that we have confirmation that that Ada pack, that's being smoked, that Himawari pack, that's being smoked as well. Boruto's being the overprotective big brother to Himawari now that he knows that Hinojin likes Himawari. And Momoshiki pulled up into Konoha ready to add more names to that Momoshiki client list, telling the higher ups of Konoha no need to bring the baby oil because he's got plenty of it. But unfortunately for him, Boruto's running around cutting those Momoshiki clones into pieces in order to get his revenge for their first battle. Quick reminder, the official chapter drops the 19th this month, which you can read that for free on Manga Plus, which does support Ikimoto as mangaka, or on Viz Media's Shonen Jump app, which is also free to use. I personally like to use the Shonen Jump app, so the review will likely be out on the 21st or the 22nd this month, because the review editor needs roughly 2 days to get the chapter review edit done after I send him the audio. So I thank you for your patience and your support. I've got 35 of the 40 pages of the chapter with raw scans, so I do have enough to get second opinions on some of the translation spots. The review won't be out until the date that I disclosed earlier, the 21st or the 22nd. So with the housekeeping out of the way, let's take a look at the key parts of the chapter. And for the things I do not bring up here, it's because obviously I'm saving it for the review to where I can further unpack the chapter, because I actually review. I don't just do a recap. First things first, our boy Boruto has officially used the karma for the first time in 3 years in battle while being in full control, which I don't have to tell you is a pretty big deal. Just given how in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex so far, he's been scared to use karma due to Momoshiki almost taking over in the code battle, and both times in the present timeline of 2 Blue Vortex when karma cut on in resonance with Kawaki's karma, he struggled to suppress karma, needing to put distance between himself and Kawaki and needing several extended moments to calm himself in order to suppress the karma seal. But in this battle with Momoshiki, Boruto appears to be in full control as he's now absorbed and attacked by Momoshiki using the karma seal. From here, there are 3 really big deals that we can take away from this. Number 1, Boruto hates using karma by his own words, which, to clarify, by hate I mean that he finds it annoying to use the karma seal, but the Momoshiki battle did force him to use karma. That much I do think that we saw coming, or rather we should have seen coming if you didn't, just based on how their first battle went before Hidari and Matsuri jumped in. Momoshiki put enough pressure on base Boruto, and from what little we saw, you can even make the argument, given the limitations of the full power Uzuhiko needing a long time to charge up, Boruto eventually would have gone down if it was just Momoshiki he was fighting. But we'll touch on that further in the review, because I already know there are people who will use the panel of Boruto cutting Momoshiki's clone, which is a full power representation of Momoshiki, into pieces, even though he's quite literally attacking the guy off guard, meaning you can't use it. Otherwise, we would be saying that Zetsu is as strong as Three-Eyed Madara, but I digress. The second thing is that we can take away from this that Boruto using karma here does mean that it upscales Momoshiki at least over base Boruto, which adds further credence to what the story has consistently told us about each of these shinju. They all scale above code without limiters. We've had multiple statements that say that, either directly or indirectly, and now that Boruto has been forced to use karma to even deal with Bug's shinju, Momoshiki, that is something more tangible. You can't dismiss statements outright, particularly when they come from reliable narrators. And in this case, when you have the panels to line it up, you can't dismiss it either, which further explains why for every shinju that we've seen in the story so far, Kashin Koji has been adamant that they needed to follow specific battle plans in order to take them down. Matsuri, for example, needed to be off guarded and mentally nerfed via Moegi's feelings for Konohamaru. Otherwise, she would not have been that easy to defeat, by Boruto's own words. Code never forced Boruto to even think about needing to use the Karma Seal. Boruto did have to use Karma, even if it's to absorb an attack. He had to use Karma here. Because if he's having to absorb an attack, it means that it moved fast enough that he could not dodge it using something like Flying Raijin. He did not have time to look at other options like counterattack. He had to use Karma to absorb it. The third thing that this does is that it gives us some look into Boruto and Momoshiki. We know that Boruto made a deal with Momoshiki to use his power. We know that in exchange for Boruto's body. We know that. But as we saw when Kashi and Koji spoke to Boruto, there are details that Boruto is specifically keeping from Koji, with Boruto only saying that he'll hold up his end of the deal. And Koji got mad at Boruto because that was not an answer to his question. There are things about this Boruto and Momoshiki dynamic that Koji does not know. When he tells Boruto to do something, because, hey, I saw this with 10 directions, we need to do this, this, and this. If Boruto makes a deviation, Koji won't see it because he cannot see what somebody will do after he tells him what he saw with 10 directions, not until he gets the next update. I don't think that the chapter will show us the context of the remaining conversation that happened off screen, just based on the fact that there's only about 5 pages left, 5 or 6 pages. But I do think we aren't done with that Momoshiki plotline. Like I said in the Patreon Discord server last night, this strikes me as more of a Luffy and Loki situation from One Piece. No spoilers for any anime only fans of One Piece, but I do think that this is going to get kicked a little further down the line. Now, another thing of note in this chapter is that we see exactly why Kashi and Koji was as dead set and adamant as he was that they needed to follow his plan to a T when it came to Momoshiki, because we see the alternate timeline where things go badly and it's time to dip those blunts in the ashes of Himawari and Ada and smoke one in their memory, because both of them ended up getting killed in that timeline. Inojin is shown holding a dead Himawari, crying with Himawari beaten to death. Full-blown blood leaking out of her as Inojin holds her on the battlefield, blood dripping down her mouth. And Ada has been taken out as well. She's been taken out by Momoshiki, and we get our answer to what happens to those who are targeted by a shinju. They do get consumed, and their body is in particular left behind in the tree. But what's interesting here is that if Ada was defeated, then her younger brother, more likely than not, fell in battle here too. The reason for this is that Damon in character does not leave the side of his sister. Those two are adjoined at the hip. If she got consumed, it means that Damon would have been in the area facing a threat that was either relative enough to him that he was not able to get back to his sister, or it was a threat big enough that it overpowered him. Because in character, Damon puts the safety of his sister before anything else, something that Damon doubles down on in this chapter. He vows he ain't letting Momoshiki get to his sister. While Ada could have theoretically gone off on her own, the only time she's ever done so was when Kawaki was hunted down by a team of people who were being led by Sasuke and a bloodlusted sage mode Mitsuki, and she specifically waited until Kawaki was alone and running so low on chakra he couldn't even use Sukuna Hikone anymore before she rushed off to get to Kawaki, because in that moment Kawaki couldn't defend himself. She says it in the manga, she was there specifically to help him escape. In character, Ada has never gone towards a battlefield because she hates fighting, and if she was going towards a battlefield where Kawaki was battling somebody stronger than him, she wouldn't have gone alone. That's the whole point of Damon being her knight. She would have taken Damon with her. I see people calling Damon a fraud here for this, but I do think that this is the right approach. I've mentioned it before, but this is another aspect of Ikimoto being someone who intensely studies everything Toriyama, from the art to the paneling and the storytelling. Benchmarks get surpassed. Jigen was this unstoppable force below Ishiki in power, but above Naruto and Sasuke. Code was used as a benchmark to show off the other villains, and by extension how strong the heroes became in the time skip. Just because Damon said he wanted to fight Boruto at full power does not mean that Boruto's the one who will give him that full power fight. More often than not, statements like that are planted in order to subvert expectations. Given Kashi and Koji at no point ever said Damon is our secret weapon to protect Ada, because Koji, for as pragmatic and logical as he is, if he saw a timeline where Damon was strong enough to kill Momoshiki to protect Ada, he would have suggested it. The same thing with Jura. And given the context clues of her being consumed here, you can make a pretty sound argument, in my opinion, that Damon ends up falling as well. And that kind of goes back to Ikimoto being as big of a Dragon Ball fanboy as he is. You look at the first 200 chapters of Dragon Ball, King Piccolo is viewed as this massive threat. His son Piccolo, a massive threat. Raditz came in. Raditz immediately took down Piccolo. Frieza and Super Saiyans were viewed as this massive benchmark of power. And then Dr. Gero takes Lapis and Lazuli, makes them into 17 and 18, and suddenly those levels of power are a joke. Cell ended up becoming a joke. By Dragon Ball Super, even the power of Majin Buu was a joke. Ikimoto draws a lot of his fights and takes a lot of the scaling stuff that you saw in Dragon Ball and applies it to Boruto, including his usage of statements. Nothing Deborah ever did was enough for us to say that he's as strong as Super Perfect Cell, but we have the statement that tells us that. The statement comes from a reliable narrator. Ikimoto uses a similar thing. Somebody who is familiar with somebody's power level says, oh yeah, this person's stronger than this person. The other thing from this chapter that I find very interesting is that both Boruto and Kawaki have gotten power up seemingly. And in particular, it seems that Ikimoto took a page out of Oda's book here. New arc and slightly new clothes in the case of Boruto, because it's only slightly modified. It's not a complete redesign like you saw with the straw hat. So the cuffs on the ends of his sleeve, they now look like they have the pink and black design that we saw Boruto have in part 1. And that black blazer is usually unbuttoned, but now it's completely buttoned up. And I only bring this up because Ikimoto is very intentional with his designs, because JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is a huge inspiration for him, and second only to Dragon Ball in that regard in terms of inspirations. Usually the designs from the clothes to the accessories and even the state of hair are directly used as reflections for the character's state of mind. Like for example, you look at Sarda, the closer she got to realizing her feelings for Boruto, her hair got messier and messier. And usually with female characters, when they're ridden, their hair is used as an anchor to reflect their emotional state of mind. So I do wonder if the buttoning up here might be a reflection of Boruto making that deal with Momoshiki and now using the Koma, because previously, as of the most recent manga chapter, everything was unbuttoned. So I did find that curious. Now, whereas Kawaki's power-up is merely hinted at, not directly confirmed, we see Amato with Kawaki in the lab, and Kawaki is on that procedure table, implying that Amato was upgrading his body, especially because Kawaki's jacket's off. With Boruto, his upgrade is more in our face, it's directly told to us, and it is nasty. Basically, the sword has been completed, and if anyone other than Boruto, Sasuke, or Sumire touches the sword, which I'm guessing for Sumire, because she's the one who can work on it, it will drain their chakra completely in one go, which makes it very dangerous. And it does look like it was an extension of that Ninja Tech blade from part 1, only it's not a chakra lightsaber, but it does have a high chakra cost. The benefit to this blade is that it will continuously absorb Boruto's chakra when he uses it, but it only slightly tapers it off. Think of it like, say, the way that Minato's seal on Naruto was used to take a portion of Kurama's chakra and add it to Naruto's chakra pool over time. Basically, this blade is taking Boruto's chakra and it is continuously running it through the blade to use the sword style that Boruto was taught by Sasuke. In order for Boruto to activate this sword, he merely needs to tilt the hilt of the sword, but it will run the chakra through the blade at that point without Boruto having to maintain conscious effort to do so, which is extremely overpowered when you think about it. All he has to do is tilt the blade, or rather the hilt, when it's unsheathed, and he's able to use that sword style. But it doesn't take away from the skill element of having to use the blade, and the safety mechanism prevents it from being stolen, and that opens up the door where if someone like Jura picks up the blade like he did in their first fight, or someone say like Momoshiki picks up the blade, it now becomes a weapon because their chakra is drained all at once based on what we've been told. But it'll be very interesting to see if it can do that to people with massive amounts of chakra, because if it can, Jesus, that is a nasty blade. Now, there's a lot more that happens in this chapter. These two characters are not the only ones who got upgrades, but I want to wait for full context of the chapter to see if the remaining pages changes my thoughts on anything that I've not discussed. Reminder, the chapter comes out on the 19th this month, and the review will be out on the 21st or the 22nd of this month. So thank you in advance for your patience, because the review editor, there's a time difference with him being in India and me being here in the US. He needs roughly 2 days to deliver the quality of the previous 27 Boruto 2 Blue Vortex chapter reviews. In the meantime, click here to check out the Best of Naruto Explained playlist, where I take the videos I feel are the best on this channel, or click here to watch videos from my other 2 anime channels where I discuss non-Naruto content.